Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9. I'm Paul Kretschmer. On today's broadcast, you'll hear an interview I had with Mario D'Aquila, who is on the management team for Assisted Living Incorporated in Cheshire.
Yeah, so we provide non-medical home care services to clients all throughout Connecticut.
How long has this been in business then, sir?
Abilities that they can age in place.
Okay. When it was started then, how strong was the perceived need for a provider like this in the state of Connecticut at that time?
Well, I'd say back in 1996, we were one of only a few providers that offered this type of support for seniors, so there was definitely a need, and there's a continuing need throughout the years, especially nowadays, where people want to age in place.
Okay. Under normal circumstances, what kind of an interface between client and provider that is working under your direction have on a routine basis? Do people visit homes, or do they go to other places?
Sure. So essentially, we offer caregiver support in the home. We also can send our caregivers to assisted living communities and independent care communities. And what our job is to do is to make sure that people's well-being is taken care of in the home. Things like activities of daily living, toileting, dressing, feeding, medication reminders, and bathing. These are all things that we can take care of.
When someone is working for you and doing things like that for someone, then what kind of training does someone like that need to have in order to do the job correctly?
Sure. Sometimes they need training with mobility equipment. Some of our clientele have trouble with mobility, so there's different equipment that's out there that our caregivers are trained to provide assistance with, and we can also provide training so that they can support people with memory impairment and with other varied disabilities.
What would you say is the single largest challenge at the current time when it comes to people finding out information in order to know that you're there and that you are available and ready? I noted on a recording I heard before you picked up the line that one of the references was that you're equipped for the current time, I'm paraphrasing here, and are available in order to make contact for someone to actually access your service.
I think one of the challenges with finding really quality agencies like ours is that people wait too long to do their research. And what they do is they wait until an emergency happens, or when they're being discharged from a hospital or a skilled nursing facility, and they need somebody to support them at home before they're even discharged. So a lot of the times we get calls that are of an urgent nature because people haven't done the research beforehand, right? And when these emergencies happen and people end up in these types of settings, very frustrating, right? A lot of times they say, well, gee, who's going to care for you in your home? And a lot of the times people don't have that answer, so they end up calling us, and we could absolutely help with that. But I think to really get, one of my points across is that I think people should do the research sooner than later, right? I think knowing about home care and the different types of home care. There's skilled home care, there's non-skilled and non-medical, what we do. There's hospice care, right, for people at end of life. All different kinds of care that can assist people aging in place in the home.
I would imagine that with the population showing a larger number of people in that category that are approaching retirement or approaching a time when they might have medical or home care needs, that population has perhaps not really been cognizant of that sort of thing, because up till then maybe they were in reasonably good condition and it hadn't crossed their mind, sort of like people who don't think they need a will until they need a will.
Oh, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I always relate home care, and actually a will, that's a great example. Everybody needs a will, right? That's what I always say. Everybody, no matter what age you are, you should get a will, because you just never know. But it's like having a smoke detector in your house, right? You never hope that you have to use it, but it's great if it's there, right? So home care is something that you want to do research on the upfront so that if you need to use it, right, you really know how to contact companies like ours. And, a little tangent, but I think it's very important for people to know is that there are many programs through the state that can help assist with home care funding. So the Department of Social Services has a program called the Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders that helps people in the community stay in the community over institutional care.
So you can say, for instance, that the cooperation for an agency such as yours and the state government, for instance, is a good and fruitful one at the current time. Then it sounds like
it's definitely a helpful resource to utilize. And there are other programs within the Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders, different service lines. One of which is really interesting and it's relatively new. And I think people need to take more advantage of this program because it's very useful. It's called the Adult Family Living Program. And this program essentially offers it could be a family caregiver or somebody living in the home, a tax-free stipend for providing care to that individual that's in the home, that senior that's in the home. And with a lot of people who might not be in the workforce now because they're caring for an elderly loved one, can potentially take advantage of this program and get that tax-free stipend of over potentially $500 per week, depending on the level of need of that individual. And our company is a provider of that program, contracted with the Department of Social Services through the Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders.
How wide-ranging, geographically speaking, do you reach out to from where you're located in Meriden?
Definitely. And you know what? We just recently moved a few years ago to our headquarters now is in Cheshire.
Okay.
And we actually have a satellite office down in Westport as well. However, we do provide services throughout the state of Connecticut. We can provide hourly services, generally centered around our branch location. However, 24-hour live-in care we can provide throughout the state, and the Adult Family Living Program, we provide the access to that program throughout the state as well.
You spoke earlier at the top of our conversation about how people sometimes wait until the last minute or until they have an urgent need and maybe they're panicking. What am I going to do? You know, my loved one is going home, but they can't go home unless there's arrangements in place already. What could you say to the person, to summarize what you've said already, about the necessity to make a timely decision to do their research so that it's ready, and then perhaps even able to update it periodically if that's a good idea, so that they stay on top of that, so that when the time comes they're able to move confidently into the next step of the life of the person involved?
You know, I think my advice is to keep an eye out for warning signs that may indicate that an elderly person needs additional help around the house before an instance happens where they absolutely do need that care. Right, so keeping an eye out for things like age-related decline, things that go with that are potentially forgetfulness and confusion, neglect of physical appearance or basic hygiene, neglect of medical needs, trouble performing routine tasks or chores, personality changes, inability to handle finances or things like paying the bills, and finally unsteadiness, clumsiness, or a recent history of falling. So if you're noticing that a loved one is demonstrating any of those things, that's the time you want to do your research, right? Don't wait until they do take a fall or they have a medical incident. If you notice some of these things early on, you can start to do your research early on. You really have a great plan that can help you out in case of an emergency. Then we can come in and provide a caregiver to help out.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your willingness to take time to speak with me on this occasion, sir, and thank you for providing the services that you do.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, my thanks to my guest, Mario D'Aquila from the Assisted Living Incorporated from Cheshire, for telling us about extended home care for your loved ones. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of this station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 WIHS.